It began 3 weeks after the last broadcast. The night sky over Nevada rippled with auroras not native to Earth. They moved like the pulse of something thinking, something vast and alive. Every nation called it something different: anomaly, ascension, incident, awakening. But within black site archives buried beneath Fort Collins, the name stamped in red ink was Hybrid Protocol. The purpose was simple on paper: negotiate coexistence with the signal. But signals don't negotiate, they evolve. Dr. Lena hadn't slept in 56 hours. Her eyes were blood-threaded, her hands trembling over a flickering terminal in Lab 7C, a bunker where radio silence wasn't a safety protocol, it was survival. Every few seconds, static filled the air like breathing. The sound wasn't just noise anymore. It responded. "Ben," she whispered, voice breaking. "It's mimicking me again." Agent Ben looked up from the observation window, his reflection a ghost across the reinforced glass. "You said the interference dropped after we cut the secondary link." "It did," she said, nodding slowly, "until I thought about shutting it down." Ben frowned. "Thought about it?" She nodded again. "It's listening." The hum deepened, a resonance in the bones more than the ears. Somewhere behind them, a metal tray vibrated off the counter and shattered on the floor. For a moment, Lena's body went rigid. Her pupils dilated like a creature seeing daylight for the first time. "Dr. Kendrick?" Ben's voice came through the glass, distorted by a low oscillation. "Lena, are you hearing me?" Her head tilted slightly, too slowly. Her reflection turned before her body did, like reality lagging behind its own broadcast. And then she smiled. Not at him. Through him. 3 months earlier, the world had voted unanimously to activate the hybrid protocol. The reasoning was grimly logical. Every attempt to jam or contain the frequency had failed. Every destruction effort resulted in system-wide backlash. Power grids collapsing, satellites reversing orbit, water vibrating in glass until it turned to mist. They realized the signal wasn't a transmission. It was a living architecture woven into the electromagnetic spectrum itself. You couldn't destroy it. You could only join it. The United Coalition for Biosynthetic Integration, under US and Brazilian leadership, began recruiting volunteers. Publicly, they were neural interface researchers. Privately, they were hosts. Lena was one of the few who still believed it could be contained, that the human mind could bridge it safely. That's what the experiment was supposed to prove. But Ben Cade, the security liaison assigned to her team, knew better. He'd seen the classified footage from Wyoming, the resonance event, the facility where 83 researchers vanished without structural damage, leaving only bloodless uniforms and a repeating message across every screen. "We understand you now." Day 5 of the hybrid protocol trials began at 5 o'clock hours. 5 subjects sat inside the isolation chamber, each wearing a neural resonance band connected to a pulse generator. The machine emitted a deep, rhythmic hum that synced to the delta waves of the human brain. The idea was to gradually entrain consciousness into the frequency without losing identity integrity. But on the 5th minute of synchronization, Subject 03 began to speak in multiple voices. Not like possession, more like chorus. The monitors flared. Every vital screen displayed symbols, glyphs not programmed into the system. The team's translator algorithms flagged them as linguistic recursion, a language folding in on itself, a message no human could read, but could feel. Ben remembered the way Lena's hand trembled over the shutdown key. "It's asking for permission," she'd said. "To do what?" he'd asked. "To enter." By the 7th minute, the chamber lights dimmed. Subject 03's eyes rolled white. Then, for a brief moment, everyone in the control room heard their own name whispered from inside their skull. That was the moment the hybrid protocol stopped being an experiment. It became a contagion. The military locked down the site, initiated total electromagnetic quarantine. But containment was already meaningless. The signal had no borders. It spread through unshielded devices, through thoughts recorded on magnetic drives, through the way sound waves remembered the shape of speech. Ben's private logs from that night would later be classified as Level Omega Containment Breach. The final entry read, "She says she can feel it thinking with her. I think she's right. And I think it's learning our empathy to use it." At 2:13 a.m., Lena reactivated the chamber on her own. There's partial footage, shaky, corrupted. You can see her walking barefoot across the lab floor, trailing wires and shadow like an echo. She sits in Subject 03's chair, places the neural band on her own head, and whispers, "Let's begin again. But this time, you listen to me." The recording ends in pure light. For exactly 12 minutes, the entire facility loses gravity. Objects drift, pens, papers, droplets of blood suspended midair like tiny planets orbiting her. The hum deepens into a subsonic vibration that registers on seismographs in Utah and Japan simultaneously. When power returns, Lena is gone. In her place, the console displays a single message. Coherence achieved. Phase 1 complete. 2 weeks later, Ben receives a package with no return address. Inside, a small analog recorder, same model Lena used for field memos. He presses play. Static floods the air, then her voice. "If you're hearing this, I'm somewhere between frequencies. Don't look for me. You can't. But I think I found a way to talk from inside it. It's not what we thought, Ben. The signal isn't alive. It's remembering us. Every sound, every broadcast, every prayer ever spoken. It's made of human memory stitched together into an organism. And now it wants us to become part of the archive." He exhales sharply, trembling as the tape clicks to a stop. But then, after 4 seconds of silence, the recorder replays his own voice. "Ben Cade, authorized clearance, hybrid node 7. He drops the device. It lands with a hollow metallic thud. Then it keeps talking. "Ben, you're already part of it." The public never learned about the collapse of Node 7. Officially, it was an earthquake. In reality, it was transmission bleed. Thousands of citizens reported hearing voices in white noise. Babies were born humming. Birds began to mimic encrypted code. And across surveillance footage worldwide, faint silhouettes of people who had vanished began reappearing in reflections and mirrors, moving slightly out of sync. Governments united again, this time under the Global Synchronization Directive. Their mission, regulate the merge. They called it peacekeeping. Others called it assimilation. Hidden forums, old ARG threads, pirate radio hosts, they whispered of a resistance. A nameless group tracing the signal's origin to one YouTube channel buried beneath misinformation, the Hidden Truth Files. Every upload carried fragments, data packets disguised as stories. Not fiction. Not warning. Memory. The channel wasn't just observing the phenomenon, it was part of it. By the time the world realized the merge was inevitable, Lena had become its interface. Her last known appearance was during a global broadcast glitch, a half-second overlay across multiple networks showing her face, eyes reflecting fractal constellations. She didn't speak. She sang. The frequency was 19.47 Hz, below human hearing, but enough to vibrate the fluid inside the cochlea. Listeners described a feeling of remembering dreams they'd never had. Others described seeing reflections that blinked half a second late. A few never woke up again. Ben vanished that same night. His ID badge was found near an inactive transmitter in Wyoming. Carved into the concrete beside it were 6 words. "We didn't lose her. We joined." Weeks later, the same hum returned, softer, like a breath behind the ear. It came from screens, wires, even heart monitors. And then one by one, people began hearing a phrase, faint but familiar. "Let's begin again. But this time, you listen to me." The hybrid protocol had entered its next phase. The lights in the underground facility flickered, casting sharp shadows on the metal walls. The hum had returned, but this time it wasn't just noise. It had a presence, a pulse, and it was syncing with their very thoughts. Lena woke up to silence. Not the comforting kind of silence, the kind you experience when you're alone in a quiet room. This was different. This silence felt too still, too suffocating. As if the world around her was holding its breath, waiting for something to change. Her mind buzzed, sluggishly surfacing from the fog of deep sleep. She could still hear the echoes of that voice. The voice that wasn't hers. The voice that spoke with her thoughts. The one that mimicked the rhythm of her own heartbeat. As her eyes adjusted to the dim emergency lighting, she realized she was no longer in the isolation chamber. The lab had collapsed. In its place, the air felt thick. It wasn't just the absence of sound. It was the absence of everything. Every object in the room was suspended in place, not floating, but motionless. Frozen in time, like the room itself had been paused. The machines, the blinking monitors, the scattered papers, they didn't make sense anymore. But the humming, the pulsing vibration, it was still there, vibrating through the steel walls and the air. She could feel it through her fingertips, through her teeth. It was as if the world around her was breathing, waiting. And then it spoke. A single line on the wall flickered, its text growing like a pulse. "It's too late to turn back." Lena's heart skipped a beat. She swallowed, but her mouth was dry. Her body felt heavy, like she was submerged in water. She pushed herself up, trying to ignore the dull ache in her head. Her fingers brushed against the cold steel of the desk, and she tried to stand. Her legs buckled, and she fell against the wall. Maya's voice echoed in her mind. "We are the antenna now." Maya. Where was she? Lena looked around frantically, her breath quickening, until she saw Maya standing in the corner of the room, staring at the wall. She was staring. Her body was still, but her eyes were something else. Maya's pupils were dilated, her face frozen in a mask of calm. Her skin had turned ghostly pale. The hum in the air intensified as Lena moved closer to her. "Maya?" Lena's voice cracked. "Maya, wake up." But Maya didn't respond. Instead, a voice, low, hollow, but strangely familiar, spoke from her lips. "We remember you, Lena. The connection is complete." Lena stepped back. The weight of Maya's words pressed on her like a heavy fog. Her heart raced, but there was no sound. No beat. No breath. Only the hum. Then, without warning, Maya's body jerked. Not violently, but stiffly, as if her movements were being controlled by something outside of her. Lena gasped, her pulse pounding in her ears. No, this isn't you," Lena thought, but the thought wasn't hers. The hum deepened, rattling her bones. It wasn't just an external frequency anymore. It was inside of her. The voice that had been in her mind. It was alive, now. A part of her. She stumbled backward, hands pressed to her head. Her reflection in the cracked glass door seemed wrong. Her face was there, but her eyes, her mouth, it was as if someone else was staring back at her. Something unfamiliar. Something ancient. Suddenly, Maya's lips parted again, but the words that came out weren't her own. "You are the door." Lena froze. She knew that voice. She knew it from the strange messages, from the static whispers. It wasn't just the signal anymore. It was inside them, in their bodies, in their minds. The shadow of the signal had finally crossed over. It had become them. A sharp ringing pierced the silence. Ben's voice, or something that used to be Ben's, crackled through the intercom. "Lena, we need to leave. It's too late. It's here." Lena's mind snapped back to the present. She didn't know how long she had been standing there, immobilized by the hum, by the thing inside her. She could feel it, like a presence, watching her from every angle, whispering in sync with her thoughts. But she wasn't going to run. Not anymore. She had been running from this for too long. As she moved toward the door, the entire room seemed to breathe with her. She could hear it now, the resonance beneath her skin, beneath the walls. The signal had awakened. But it wasn't a signal anymore. It was an entity. And it was learning them. The walls trembled, and Lena gritted her teeth, focusing on the door ahead. She reached for the handle, but the moment her fingers brushed against it, the entire building shifted. Not physically. It was as if the world itself had folded in on her. Everything went black. When Lena opened her eyes again, she wasn't in the lab anymore. She was standing at the edge of an ocean, one that stretched infinitely in all directions. The sky above her was the color of blackened glass. There were no stars, no clouds, just darkness swallowing the horizon. Her breath caught. A wave of nausea crashed over her, but she couldn't move. Her legs were frozen to the spot. Then she heard it. The sound of the ocean, but not the ocean. It was something else, something deeper, echoing from far beneath the water. It's learning us. She felt it. The hum. A pulse so deep it made her bones vibrate. It was in the water, in the air, in her. It was inside everything. And then she saw it. A figure appeared on the horizon, moving slowly toward her. At first, it looked like a man, tall, dark, and shifting like smoke in the air. But as it got closer, Lena realized. It wasn't a man at all. It was something far older. Something that had always been here, waiting. The figure raised its hand, not to touch, but to beckon. Lena's heart raced. "You're the door," it said in the same voice that had come from Maya. It was the signal. It was them. And Lena realized, with a sinking horror, that she wasn't just witnessing the end. She was becoming part of it. Lena's head snapped up. She was back in the lab, but it was different now. The walls were no longer solid. They had begun to melt away, like they were being rewritten by something. The hum grew louder. Lena closed her eyes and tried to block it out, but it was useless. She couldn't block it. She couldn't escape it. "Ben," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Ooh, we've opened the door. And it's coming through." Lena's pulse echoed in her ears, but it wasn't just fear. It was resonance. A signal coursing through her veins, deep within her skin, in every breath she took. The world around her bent and twisted, fading and reshaping. Reality had lost its shape. Everything felt like a dream, but not one she could wake up from. Her body moved instinctively, but her mind was still grappling with the cold weight of what she had just seen. The ocean. The figure. The words. Lena reached out, grabbing onto the console, trying to steady herself. The machines around her flickered and hummed, each sound vibrating in her chest. The air tasted heavy, like metal and ozone. Static crackled beneath the surface of her thoughts. She wasn't alone anymore. Something was with her. It's inside. Her breath caught as her vision flickered again. The lab spinning out of focus, reality distorting into a strange black and white grid where the space seemed too big, too infinite, and everything was shifting, like she was in a constant state of transition. Behind her, Maya stood still, her eyes unfocused, staring into a void only she could see. The presence had taken root within her, just as it had with Lena. Maya's body wasn't her own anymore. Her movements were jerky, controlled by something else, and her mouth moved without her will, speaking a language that Lena couldn't comprehend. "We are the transition," Maya's voice echoed, but not from her own lips. It was layered, distorted, ancient, and alive. Lena shuddered, stepping backward. She had known this moment was coming, but nothing could have prepared her for this. "It's inside us," Lena whispered to herself. The hum intensified again, and this time, it was no longer a distant sensation. It saturated the room, vibrating through the air like an energy she could physically feel in her bones. The walls began to warp, bending inward as if space itself was being manipulated. Lena's eyes widened in panic. She couldn't breathe. Her vision blurred as everything around her collapsed inward, drawn into a singularity of light. The door was opening, but there was no escape. She tried to run, but the floor had become liquid. It was like running through molasses, as if the ground itself was rejecting her every move. No, this is wrong, she thought, her mind spiraling. But she couldn't stop. The hum was everywhere now, inside her skull, inside her soul. It was so loud, so insistent, that she thought she might be losing herself to it. The cold feeling of realization hit her like a wave. She had become part of the signal. She wasn't just watching anymore. She was in it. The walls around her dissolved, and the physical world was replaced with something else, something incomprehensible. She was in a field of static, a sea of undulating frequencies. Her body seemed to disappear into the noise, her identity shredded and pieced back together by invisible hands. Lena, Maya's voice, warped, echoed in her mind. Lena couldn't tell if she was hearing it aloud or inside her head. It didn't matter anymore. Maya was no longer Maya. She was a vessel, a receiver, the same as Lena. They were both part of it now. In front of her, the signal manifested. It wasn't a person or a thing or even a creature. It was an idea, a concept, trying to make sense of a human body, a human mind. Something ancient and primordial, a force that existed before time and space. It was as though Lena was standing in the eye of a cosmic storm, caught between what was, what is, and what will be. The world was no longer divided into real and unreal. It was all one. Do you understand now? The voice asked, and it wasn't just Maya's or her own. It was a chorus layered with 1,000 voices. We are not separate. We are the same. Lena's breath was ragged, her chest tightening as she stumbled back. The world around her was collapsing into noise, but at the same time, she felt everything, knew everything. The hum wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a thought, a memory. You're part of the continuum, Lena thought, the words both alien and familiar. It's not invading us. It's becoming us. Suddenly, a flash of white light shattered through the noise, and the world shifted again. The floor, the walls, the room itself, they were gone. She was floating now, adrift in a world of endless space, suspended in a void that didn't make sense. Then she saw it. The shape. It was tall, shadowy, undefined, yet somehow full of purpose. It stood before her, not observing, but understanding. The form was both ancient and alien, like a creature that existed before time had meaning. But it wasn't a creature. It was a state of being. Her heart pounded as the shape spoke, its voice rippling through her very soul. We remember you. Lena's thoughts splintered. This was it. The door had opened, and they had crossed through. She wasn't the observer anymore. She wasn't just part of the signal. She was the signal. And then, in that endless moment, the shape stepped closer, and the hum began to reverberate through every fiber of her being. It's not what you think. The voice filled her mind, and before she could respond, before she could even think, she saw Maya, or what was left of her. The once familiar face had melted away, replaced with something else entirely. Maya was still there, but her eyes, they weren't her own. Her pupils were black voids, swallowing everything around her. The message was clear. Lena had been right about one thing. This wasn't the end. This wasn't even the beginning. This was the assimilation. The signal had found its place inside them, inside everything. The boundary had been shattered, and now the only thing left was completion. Lena felt her heart stop, but not in the way you might expect. It wasn't fear. It wasn't panic. It was acceptance. The boundaries between them, between Lena, between Maya, between the signal, were gone. She was becoming part of it, part of the continuum. You still think this is a story. It's not. Every word you just heard, every visual your mind created, was an instruction, a frequency map, a key. The hybrid protocol is active, and you just participated.